corporate party thrummed with a restless energy. A glittering veneer stretched thin over something raw and untamed. Alina stood poised at its heart, a breathtaking woman of 40, her chestnut hair tumbling in soft waves down her back, catching the chandelier light like liquid bronze. Her emerald dress clung to her body, a second skin that traced every curve, every dip, daring the room to look away. She was more than beautiful. She was a quiet wildfire, her presence a magnet for stolen glances and hushed whispers. Her husband Mark hovered beside her, his tie askew, his breath sharp with whiskey as he pressed a sloppy kiss to her cheek. "Gonna say hi to the boys," he mumbled, stumbling off into the crowd, leaving her alone with a glass of Pinot Noir and a prickling sense of exposure. The air felt charged, heavy with anticipation. And as she sipped her wine, she caught a pair of dark, unrelenting eyes pinning her from across the room, a gaze that promised to peel back her carefully stitched composure. Hey, if that's got your pulse pounding already, smash that like button and subscribe, trust me. You're not ready for the spiral we're about to dive into, and you won't want to miss a single steamy frame. Those eyes belonged to Victor, the director, a man carved from authority, his silver-streaked beard framing a face both handsome and severe, his suit tailored to a body that still held the vigor of youth. He crossed the room with a predator's stride, a glass of bourbon dangling from his fingers, his lips curling into a smile that was equal parts charm and threat. "You don't belong in the shadows," he said, his voice a low rumble, velvet-wrapped steel brushing against her senses as he stopped mere inches away. Lena's breath hitched, her fingers tightening around her glass until her knuckles whitened. She should have turned away, found Mark, clung to the safety of her vows, but the wine had softened her edges, and Victor's nearness was a current pulling her under. "Maybe I like the shadows," she countered, her voice a shaky dare, her hazel eyes flickering with a mix of fear and reckless curiosity. His laugh was soft, dangerous, and he leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear. "Then let me show you a darker corner." His hand grazed her lower back, a featherlight touch that seared through her dress, igniting a storm of shame and longing she couldn't suppress. She let him steer her through the crowd, her heels clicking against the polished marble floor, each step a heartbeat echoing her descent. The party's chatter faded into a distant hum as they slipped down a shadowed hallway, the walls lined with framed accolades, a gallery of Victor's triumphs, now witness to her fall. His office waited at the end, its heavy oak door a gateway to the abyss. He pushed it open with a casual flick of his wrist, revealing a sanctum of leather and power. A sprawling desk littered with papers, a tufted armchair in the corner, the faint scent of cigar smoke lingering in the air. Alina hesitated, her hand brushing the doorframe, her mind screaming turn back, but Victor's fingers curled around her wrist, tugging her inside. The door shut with a soft thud, and the lock clicked a sound that reverberated in her chest like a gunshot. "You're trembling," he murmured, stepping closer, his eyes drinking her in her flushed cheeks, her parted lips, the way her dress shimmered as her chest rose and fell. "Mark, too drunk to notice," he added, his voice a taunt, his fingers brushing a strand of hair from her face with a tenderness that clashed with the hunger in his gaze. Alina's throat tightened, guilt clawing at her, but her body betrayed her, leaning into his touch. "This is wrong," she whispered, more to herself than to him, but he silenced her with a kiss deep, commanding, his lips tasting of bourbon and forbidden promises. Her hands shoved at his chest, a fleeting protest, but they lingered, fisting in his shirt as he backed her against the desk. The edge dug into her thighs, her dress riding up to expose the lace of her stockings, black, delicate, a secret she'd worn to tease Mark, now a trophy for Victor's hands. He lifted her onto the desk with ease, her wine glass tipping over, crimson pooling across the papers like blood. "God, you're exquisite," he growled, his beard scraping her neck as he kissed a jagged path down her collarbone, her skin prickling with heat. Her fingers dug into his shoulders, nails biting through his shirt as his hands roamed bold, unapologetic, sliding under her dress, tracing the curve of her hips, the damp heat between her thighs. He gasped, her head tipping back, a moan slipping free as he tore at her defenses, his belt clinking as it hit the floor. He pressed himself between her legs, the fabric of his trousers rough against her skin, and then he was inside her, slow at first, a deliberate invasion, then fierce, relentless. The desk creaked under their weight, papers crunching, the room spinning with the scent of sweat and sin. Every thrust was a wound, a thrill, a confession she couldn't take back, her body arching, her legs wrapping around him, pulling him deeper as shame and ecstasy warred within her. Hated him for this, hated herself more, but the fire in her veins wouldn't let her stop. Her breath came in ragged bursts, her moans echoing off the walls as he drove her higher, her hands clawing at his back, his growls vibrating against her skin. When it was over, she slumped against the desk, trembling, her dress a wrinkled mess, her thighs slick with evidence of their crime. Victor straightened, adjusting his tie with a smirk that made her stomach lurch. "Back to the party, then," he said, casual as if they'd shared nothing more than a handshake. She slid off the desk, her legs unsteady, smoothing her hair with shaking hands, the taste of him still on her lips as she slipped out, the hallway stretching endlessly before her. Party roared back into focus, laughter, clinking glasses, Mark's voice cutting through the din. He stood with a group of colleagues, red-faced and swaying, a fresh drink sloshing in his hand. "There's my girl," he called, slinging an arm around her, oblivious to the flush on her cheeks, the tremor in her smile. "Having a blast, huh?" he slurred, his breath hot against her ear. She nodded, her voice caught in her throat, her skin still alive with Victor's touch, every nerve screaming with the weight of what she'd done. The night dragged on, a blur of forced smiles and stolen glances at Victor, who mingled as if nothing had happened, his smirk a silent taunt across the room. When Mark finally stumbled over, suggesting a taxi, she dialed the number with numb fingers, her mind replaying the desk, the lock, the sound of her own surrender. A taxi pulled up under a flickering street lamp, and a woman emerged, Lana, tall and striking, her blonde hair spilling from a leather jacket, her sharp cheekbones catching the light. "Hop in," she said, her voice a sultry drawl that sent a shiver down Alina's spine. She slid into the backseat beside Mark, the leather cool against her overheated skin, Lana's eyes catching hers in the rearview mirror, a knowing glint that made her stomach twist. The car hummed to life, the city blurring past, headlights carving paths through the dark. Mark's hand rested on her thigh, heavy and familiar, but then his gaze shifted, locking onto Lana. "Hell of a driver," he said, his voice rough, his fingers brushing Lana's shoulder as he leaned forward. Alina's heart stuttered. Did he know? His touch tightened, possessive yet wandering, and Lana smirked, glancing back. "Careful what you wish for," she teased, her tone dripping with challenge. Mark chuckled, a dark, jagged sound, and leaned closer, whispering something that made Lana's lips curve into a wicked grin. Alina's pulse hammered, guilt and dread tangling with a sick, reckless heat as his hand slid higher on her leg, pulling her into his orbit. "Both of you, huh?" Lana said, slowing the car, pulling into a shadowed alley off the main road. She turned, unbuckling her seatbelt with a click, and climbed into the backseat with a grace that made Alina's mouth dry. "Your trouble," Lana whispered, her fingers tangling in Alina's hair, pulling her into a kiss, sharp, mint-laced, a jolt of raw, unfiltered want. Mark groaned, his hands tearing at Alina's dress, then Lana's jacket, buttons popping like gunfire, fabric ripping in the frenzy. Air thickened with gasps, the rustle of clothing, the press of bodies, Alina caught between them, her skin burning, her mind a storm of he knows, He knows. Lana's nails raked her back, leaving trails of fire, while Mark's lips found her throat, his teeth grazing her pulse as his hands roamed, claiming her, claiming Lana. The car rocked, windows fogging, the alley light casting jagged shadows across their tangled limbs, a tableau of chaos and desire. Lena's breath hitched, her body surrendering again, caught in the push and pull of guilt and ecstasy, her hands clutching Lana's leather, Mark's shirt, anything to anchor her in the spiraling madness. Then what? The street lamp flickered, its hum the only sound beyond their ragged breathing. Did they collapse, spent and silent, the weight of their actions settling like ash? Or did the night drag them deeper, a reckoning postponed, a secret shared in the dark? Alina's eyes met Mark's, searching, pleading, drowning, but his grin was a mask, unreadable, and Lana's laughter lingered, a siren's call curling through the haze. The story paused, teetering on the brink, a breath held before the inevitable crash, or perhaps the quiet drift into something new.